Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar.
And there we are.
There we are.
We
Happy
are
Lundi.
live. Happy who's he? What's it? Happy Lundi Gras.
That's right.
I forgot it was Lundi Gras.
There was ever a Lundi Gras to be home drinking coffee. This was it.
It's snowing outside my house. I don't know about yours, but I got 2 inches of snow.
No, you don't have snow in uptown New Orleans.
I'll show you a picture. I got snow in uptown New Orleans.
Because, you know.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. It's the kind of Mardi.
Uh-oh. I think you're having internet problems. Are you plugged in on your internet? Uh-oh, I hope you're not saying anything important. There he is.
I was just saying, I wake up and you go, man, I hope nobody wants to do anything today. I don't really feel like, it's a brutal. And then, you know, there's plenty of Mardi Gras, of course, where we were out in weather just like this. You got your costume is drenched and you're cold and you're drinking way too much because you're trying to stay warm and it's not working.
Right.
You know,
right.
The myth that alcohol warms you up is just that. It's a myth. It just makes you drunk enough not to care that you're freezing and wet. Anyway, it's a tough market. Like it's blowing out there, man.
Oh yeah, it would have been.
If you were out there, it'd be tough. Like or what's Harry's parade tonight?
Oh right. Orpheus.
Yeah. Orpheus would be brutal. You know.
Agreed.
They'd be out there. Harry'd be leading that charge, man. He'd be wet as a hound, but he'd be out there. I don't think I would. And then Mardi Gras morning, man, because you know, when we had the crew of bikers, it was like 60, sometimes 100 people on bikes. The tradition was meet at like 6:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning to start getting ready, and then you meet at a bar for 6:30 and have a drink and then roll. Man, waking up at like 5 to start putting on your costume and it's 22 degrees outside, you're like, oh please, can't we just cancel it this year?
Especially if you played a gig the night before, right?
Although if you knew it was coming, like then it's like costume appropriate. You got some big giant baggy thing to wear for a costume, and you're just layered underneath with all kinds of stuff to keep you warm.
But you'd have to have like crazy amounts of
The Pillsbury Doughboy is a good costume on that day.
Well, Steven Susanak says it's 17 degrees here. It's here in the snow. So, Steven, where you at?
We should stop crying. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, maybe so. It's 40 something. I think it's 40 outside, right? And but it feels like it's -9.
Well, Mikey, I thought since it is the Mardi Gras show, you know, I'm dressed for it. I have my coat from Freddie Blue, and purple shirt, and my Mardi Gras beads. I thought I'd have a little Mardi Gras story for you that
nice.
Share with the folks having coffee with us. The story of the nasty evil clown. It's a Mardi Gras classic.
Definitely a Mardi Gras classic. Oh, by the way, so real quick, Steven is in Houston, and it's 17 degrees in Houston, Texas.
All right, then we're not going to talk about the weather anymore.
That's nuts. I'm sorry about your Houston. That's nuts. That's just nuts.
That's great.
All right, back to the nasty evil clown. Is this?
Yeah, we'll do Mardi Gras.
Is this Tim Cohen? Is he the nasty?
This is Tim Cohen. He's now a very respected member of New Orleans film community. 6 years running. In a highly respected position with the NCIS New Orleans organization. A husband, devoted husband, a proud member of the community. But when he first arrived in New Orleans as a veteran of the first Gulf War and a college student from northern Louisiana who was really from Gary, Indiana, he was, he was from the Midwest. You know, he was young, angry. Guys from the Midwest, they think they know how to drink when they get to New Orleans. But the bars close in the Midwest, Mikey.
Right.
So he was learning whole new skill sets in the bars in New Orleans. And as a young man can sometimes do, he got himself into some difficult straits, financially and otherwise, and he needed a place to crash. And at the time, I was a bachelor living on Carrollton Avenue near Orleans. And I had a place I kept available for my friends to crash. It was my kitchen pantry. It was a big pantry. It was big enough for a sleeping bag, and you could close the door and sleep all day if you want to because it was dark. And being a bachelor, I didn't have anything in there at the time except for a jug of water and a bottle of scotch and a can of cream corn in case I needed a little base to drink on because you can't drink on an empty stomach, all the time. And so he was living in my pantry, and Mardi Gras had come. And Cowboy Mouth was just getting started, so I didn't have a lot of money. We were making okay money, but I had a little extra, and I had a couple of other ne'er-do-well musician friends and artist friends, and we sort of put together. We had all had our costumes. We put together, and we got $8.50 to buy Tim a costume because he was broke. He was living in the pantry and just drinking and not shaving, and he was a scary-looking sight. So we took him to the thrift store with our $8.50, and we found a clown costume, but even back in 92, $8 didn't go that far. The clown costume was faded. It used to be like purple and green, and now it was like a pink chartreuse thing going on. And it was ripped in the elbows and in the knees where you could see the linen underneath the silk lining. And we got him a clown wig, one of those orange clown wigs for 50 cents. 50 cents didn't buy even a quality clown wig at the thrift store. The orange hair was hanging off in little threads, and the skull cap had like holes in it where his real brown hair was poking through. And with the busted wig and a nasty torn clown costume, by the time he got all the whole look on, he was, did I freeze?
No, you're good.
Gosh. By the time he got the whole look on, he was a pretty scary looking clown, And so we figured at the time, if you are not from New Orleans, there's a tradition where if you hold a cane of flowers, you give out flowers for kisses on Mardi Gras Day in the marching groups and stuff. And so we figured if we gave him a cane full of flowers, he would make him less threatening looking. It looked like he wanted to give out kisses, but he just held the cane above his head menacingly, and he just looked more scary than ever, We were walking down St. Charles Avenue, and a little boy comes up and he says, "Hey, mister, can I have a flower?" And he goes, "No! Get away." And the mother goes, "Come away, son. He's a bad clown." And the nun, little sweet old nun, comes up, tiny little thing, and she goes, "Can I have a flower for a kiss?" And he goes, "Sorry, sister. I'm giving out spankings for flowers." And I'm not making this up. This being New Orleans and it being Mardi Gras, the nun bent over and took her spanking and got her flower and walked away with a smile, which officially made him the nasty, evil clown.
Yeah, I think spanking nuns. And that definitely sounds like Timmy Cohen.
The Tim Cohen of those days. The Tim Cohen of today is docile as a lamb.
Yes, he's a sweetheart. But I do remember he brought out the worst in me.
He has one saber.
He would bring out the worst in me as well. I don't know if you remember those games of hearts that would, wind up.
Oh my God! Don't remind me. The Hearts games are embarrassing to me.
No, they're not. They were awesome.
Because I was a terrible loser. I came from a big family where they ridiculed you for losing, and then you had that awful thing you used to do when you made your big play. You'd throw the card down, and with your big ass lanky body, you'd stand up and wave your arms and go, "Get up off of that thing!" And you feel bad. It infuriated me beyond. And then Cohen and my ex-tour manager. At the time, and you were all good card players, and I was convinced were cheating me. And I was the only honest man at the table, and I was getting trounced. And I remember at one point we were on the way home from Texas, from Austin, and Keith Sparrow, the music journalist for The Advocate back then for the Times-Picayune, was following us back from Austin in the nun shuttle bus that Tim had bought from the Little Sisters of the bus. He found it from the Little Sisters of the Poor, probably one of the nuns he spanked, and bought this shuttle bus that they used to pick up old people in. So it had a lift gate, and we would use the lift gate to put equipment in the back. And my late brother Andrew, this wooden bunk beds in the center, and a card table was in the front.
Right.
So we were sitting there playing cards on the way back from Austin, and I was losing bad. Y'all were taunting me, and Cohen was taunting me, and you were doing the chomp dance. Deck cards and started throwing it out the side of the window. And we pulled over for gas. Next stop, and y'all went in laughing, and I went in to get something to cool off, and Keith Sparrow came up and goes, "What was with the cards flying out the window of the bus?" For about a half a mile, because I wouldn't stop throwing them. I was so mad.
Oh, that was awesome. See what I'm saying? It's brilliant. That was a lot of fun. And
Oh,
I didn't even know hearts until you guys taught it to me, and then it was like one of my favorite games for the longest time. Like, I like this game. This is mean. It's a
it's a
mean-spirited.
mean-spirited game, and I am a kind-spirited man who was getting taken advantage of by mean-spirited people.
Yes, you're right.
And I
Everybody that surrounded you
said,
had an enjoyment of hearts, that an appreciation of, wow, we get to be mean to each other
yeah,
fairly.
it's not friendly, that game.
No, no.
There's nothing friendly about it.
No. That is a game of. Hey, look, I have my guitar. This is my guitar cup today. It's all the guitars that I used to own, like pre-Katrina, that I don't own anymore.
Oh, really? Is that true?
Well, yes and no. I did have. I did have one of each of these guitars. These aren't actually the pictures of them, but I did have.
I thought about all your studio gear that you lost.
Yes.
I never thought about all the instruments that you lost.
I lost like 12 guitars.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, it was only so much. It was like kids and guitars. I had to make a choice. It was a hard choice.
So you took the kids.
I took the kids. I thought there might be charges if I didn't. I thought if I left them, I might get in trouble. So I'm like, well, I'm going to have to take these guys.
You leave them with a little floaty device.
Look, the thought crossed my mind. I'm like, you guys are going to be fine. There's stuff in the fridge,
Just stuff in the fridge.
Just
The power will go out for a little while, but
don't even worry about that. Scary sounds, you'll be fine. Call us.
well, then seriously, that was mostly what we expected from a hurricane back then.
Right.
I remember, like that wonderful film, music film documentary, and Robert Muggy was making the film New Orleans Musicians Beyond the Music or something. It was, I forget the name of the film.
Was it New Orleans Music in Exile? Was that his?
Musicians in Exile. And he was interviewing me because we were Cowboy Mouth. And I was like, man, I lost my house and all my stuff, but this guy, listen to his story. And he would tell him about coming home and, the insurance adjuster telling you over the phone, oh, you haven't seen your house yet. And you're like, yeah, is there something I should know?
He's like,
and then he told me boat on top of the roof and the truck on top of the studio. And
right.
And I remember you saying, like, we had left sandbags 3 feet high around the house. And when we got home, they were still in place, man. They held. The water had gone completely over the house.
Right.
The sandbags held, man.
That's right. I had to step over those damn sandbags to get into the house.
To get the ruin of your house.
Right.
Well, I remember that first Mardi Gras back after the flood, because, we were all, I mean, whether you lost something or not,
It fucked you up,
There's a line in one of the songs I wrote for 9 Lives with Coleman, and the flood didn't reach St. Charles, but the water found us all.
Right.
And so wherever you lived, the flood changed how you lived.
Right.
And I remember thinking, like, how's this going to go? But it was such a joyous Mardi Gras because, first of all, people needed joy, and we were all so glad to see each other.
Mm-hmm. No kidding.
I suppose when this is behind us and we can actually go back out in public, it'll be like that on a global level.
Right.
That feeling of love and wow, I miss just seeing you.
Right.
Hug you is cool. Like, we back there again. Like Katrina, as painful as it was, it had its gifts.
Mm-hmm.
The love flowed and the feeling of belonging here, resonated for me. I mean, I always knew I was a New Orleanian, a channel rat at heart. But when the flood hit, I tried. I looked around. I love Chicago, one of my favorite cities, some of my favorite people. But as we speak, it's like 22 below.
Right. Right. I know.
And I remember Billy Godin, a friend of mine who sings with Category 6. He had exiled to Chicago, and he was working for the House of Blues up there, and we were playing there. So he came on the tour bus to say hello, and I said, hey, Bill, I'm thinking about, moving up to Chicago for a while because my house is gone in New Orleans. And he looked down and went, don't fucking do it, man. He goes, it's brutal. It's so cold. He goes, above a bar, and by the end of January, I had stopped going to that bar. I would buy a 6-pack in my apartment because I couldn't stand the thought of going out in the cold.
So
it's true. I've played Chicago enough times to know, and I love, like, of course, I love New York. Too expensive. There were parts of the Carolinas, like Charleston, is a lovely town.
Mm-hmm.
like a Protestant version of New Orleans. We have a lot more manners and rules there than we do. So I would stick out like a sore thumb, I'm sure. I had to come home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to, I see the virtual shows and I love the people for how much they need each other. I can't wait till we can be together. That Mardi Gras.
Right.
Next month.
Next Mardi Gras. I'm sure it'll be a really big one next Mardi Gras. Yeah.
Joyous Mardi Gras.
You know, I think in some ways, like it is literally raining. This is like fat rain going on outside my house.
Yeah, it's just reaching me now. I see it now. I'm getting freezing rain.
Yeah.
Mixed with
So this is Mardi Gras' way. This is the world's way of saying you don't really want to do Mardi Gras this year.
Oh, I got snow. I got snow.
Look at that. See?
Definitely the universe's way of saying, "Hey guys, really stay home."
Yeah. You don't want. Yeah.
You know?
I'm gonna poop all over the day for you, so you don't feel bad about missing it.
So that none of you out there feel badly about missing Mardi Gras.
Right. It's just gonna be a dreary, yucky day. You know what I might do is I might like go dig online and find some old footage of the parades going down Canal Street or something like that. Put that on. Who knows?
Yeah. I heard the people with the signs saying you're going to hell for enjoying Mardi Gras were still out in Jackson Square.
Oh.
There weren't anybody allowed. And I can only hope that they remain diligent today as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You got to be out there, people. I mean, come on. It's what's in people's minds. That's what they're trying to change people's minds. You can't try to heathenistic Mardi Gras.
It's a very popular God, the God that hates.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's a big one.
He's got a lot of followers. You know, when I was young and went to Catholic school, we were taught about the God whose main message was love each other. And I'm sure he's still out there somewhere. I'm sure he's got his followers. But this God that hates has got a whole bunch of followers, man. They must be at some kind of war.
Right, right. You ever saw American God or read American Gods? Where whatever gods get the like over here, the book kind of goes into like media and things like that become the new gods. Taking over for these old gods like Wednesday and Thor and all that stuff. So it's kind of a battle against the old gods against these new gods. It's pretty cool story. I think the reason I mentioned that is just I can't remember now.
I mentioned a few parades, by the way.
What about parades?
You mentioned a couple of parades, and you mentioned Thor.
Yes, yeah, right, because they're all based off the old gods, right? They have to have new ones based off the new gods, But
it's really how we knew gods when we were young. Greek gods, anyway. It was the parades,
right? That's how that was your introduction to them, right? I loved Greek mythology. I mean, it turned into superhero stuff, really. I mean, all of that stuff because everything was, super powered this and that. I loved it. It was always fun.
Fascinating about the I love this. Of course, I'm of the generation that loves the superhero thing too.
Right.
But did you know this about Superman? Did you know that Joseph Stalin's name was not Stalin? And did you know that Stalin in English, Superman?
Oh, really?
And if you ever think about how much his signal looks like the hammer and sickle.
No kidding.
There's some real in-your-face stuff about Superman.
Huh. Well, I mean, weren't Schuster and those guys Jewish? The guys who wrote the original Superman?
I'm not. I mean, I know superheroes. I don't know everybody who wrote the comics, and I don't know that.
Gotcha.
If I could get my friend Luis Marquez to listen to our show, he'd be calling right now with all that information.
He would. He'd set us straight.
Oh yeah, he's up in Chicago. He knows all that is in the superhero world.
Right. I do. I think I don't know if it's Simon and Schuster. No, that doesn't sound right.
No, that's the book publisher.
Yeah. No,
that's Carly Simon's father.
Is it really?
Yeah, grandfather. That's because she had to rough it before she was a famous songwriter.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, she had to rough it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Hamptons is it can be tough on the mean streets of the Hamptons. Don't you think otherwise?
I was talking to a friend of mine this morning and talking about, when I first realized I loved Cobra Kai was the first episode. He's wearing a zebra shirt. The blonde-haired character, yes. So don't just short the guy by calling him the blonde-haired character. All right, he's Johnny. He's Johnny. I'm sorry. By the way, I went back and watched Karate Kid just because I loved it when I was a kid, right? So I'm like, all right, this show's great. Let me go see the Karate Kid. And Ralph Macchio's character, was it Danny? Danny? Is that his character? Yes, the whole time.
When you watch the show How I Met Your Mother, Barney, the character Barney, had a fixation with Johnny being the true hero of the movie and Danny being the upstart from Jersey that was always causing shit.
Right.
Like, really putting the hose on Johnny in the shower was a bridge too far.
Right. And of course he came and kicked his ass.
You know, what else is Johnny supposed to do but come out of the shower wet and kick your ass? Not only did you you ruin his costume, you ruined his weed, man.
Yes, right. I agree. After
Smoke the weed and then throw the hose on him, and you get a whole different reaction.
You're right.
First, bad plan. Bad plan.
Right. If you'd have let him get high first, he'd have been like, "Dude, that's not cool." He might have just chilled out.
Miyagi had been there. He would have said, "Daniel-san, no wet him now. After he get high, he will laugh and laugh." But in a whole different movie.
It's a whole different movie. It changed.
They should have made it Fast Times at Karate Kid.
Right. And then Sean Penn could have showed up at some point and been like, "Dude,
and really, guys need to chill."
Right.
Really.
What the hell, dude? Chill. It'd have been great.
I guess watch the Cobra Kai series, and it was a guilty pleasure that I didn't even admit to Allison for like the first week. I was watching it late at night when she was asleep, just like, man, I'm too old to be watching a show like this. But then they'd show flashbacks from the movie. And suddenly I'm face to face with, as the guy wrote in All the King's Men, the friend of the face of my youth.
Right.
You know, suddenly I'm looking at the guy who I knew when I was young, and suddenly I'm young again. So I'm watching Karate Kid. And how did he turn out? Because my life ain't so bad. Oh, Johnny's life is messed up, man.
Right.
So, and then every time you're about to go, oh, this is just too much for an old person to be watching a kid show, they'd throw in a flashback, and they get me right back in.
It gets you right back. And what the
nostalgia factor? It's here. Nostalgia is one of the finest drugs there is.
It certainly is. But you have to admit that show is like way better than it should be. I mean, just the way that they deal with characters, sticking.
You know what it was? It's a smart show.
Right. It's a smart show.
Will Smith was one of the executive producers, and he's a very smart filmmaker. And then he was smart enough to include Ralph Macchio and Zbebkis, Johnny, as producers. So everybody's making money.
Right.
To tap into nostalgia. And again, the strongest drug there is. You take all the drugs that they sell, nostalgia is the strongest one.
Absolutely.
People a little bit of the past. And so it's really smartly done. They keep Miyagi in there. They keep bringing you back to the Karate Kid's message, but to that place in yourself that was 40 years younger and was open to.
And more importantly, unlike Star Wars, which tried to do it by launching a whole new cast, these guys are smart enough to realize, yeah, we have the new cast, but we're going to just as heavily deal with this old cast that is part of your nostalgia, like you're saying. You know, if you take the show and the theme and just do all the kids and never have, the older guys. And
tells me that they didn't have to pay those two guys as much as they would have had to pay Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill to be more involved.
Well, no, actually, it was a choice. I mean, the money wasn't a problem. It's Disney. What it really was, it was a choice to not keep the characters together. They made some choices that they could have made different choices. That's all.
They should have had Luke and Han together one more time.
It would have, yes. And if they would have, like I said, if they would have had I think you wouldn't have as many fans freak out if they would say, all right, this trilogy is closing up the loops on the last trilogy. So the old cast, because that's what everybody was waiting for.
On social media, and here's one thing that's wrong with modern audience. The filmmaker has to worry about the fans freaking out on social media. They just made the movie, right. They went to see it, or they didn't go to see it. And you made the next movie, or you didn't make a next movie.
Right.
Imagine the anxiety of having to wonder what 360 million people are going to have to say about your piece of art. Lou Reed, rest his soul, once said about making an album, you work your ass off for a year and a half in the studio so some asshole in the Village Voice can give you a B+.
Right. I get it. I totally get it.
160 million assholes giving him a B+.
Yes.
That's not good as Lou's last record. Really, you ever tried being a genius?
And no, you're right. I mean, it is art, and it should be as simple as you liked it or you didn't like it. You know, I mean, it shouldn't change people's lives.
It's a double-edged sword. What the social media has done for the Star Wars franchise in particular, but for a lot of franchises, it has made it a global community. And because the fans feel like they have their say, they're emotionally invested in the future of the characters and the future of the minor and major characters for that matter. So it's really smart marketing in the end to listen to, because they're not really listening to all the bitching. We're listening to the bitching. They're making the movie they were planning on making. And
right.
letting the chips fall where they may, which is what they've been doing all along.
Right.
Now they're just letting the fans have their say to each other on social media, and it's smart. It's like the old in the days of having, rock bands would have clubs. You join a club, and we talked about this on another show. It says what club you're a member of. If you wear your Star Wars shirt, it says I'm a member of the Star Wars geek but spiritual club.
Right. Right. No, you're right. Oh, by the way, we did have somebody, Steven Susanak, came in and told us Superman is Schuster and Siegel. I was close.
You were close.
Schuster and Siegel. And then he also says Tipitina's TV has king cake in a movie on YouTube tomorrow. He says he's done it all weekend, showing some good old Mardi Gras movies worth a watch. So Mardi Gras movies? Do they have Mardi Gras movies? I guess
sure
movies with Mardi Gras in it, right? I'm sure. Yeah.
I also not in Creole. That was fun to watch. It's not a Mardi Gras movie in particular, but it's a very interesting look at New Orleans in 1959.
There's a Clint Eastwood movie too that happens during Mardi Gras, and he's actually a Saints fan.
Tightrope. He's a cop who's got some sexual perversions.
Right.
And the killer's playing on his sexual perversions to make it look bad for him.
But I love that movie. I mean, he's
tightrope.
Yes, and he's wearing, and the quarterback in that movie is somebody Stabler. It's not Kenny Stabler, but it's somebody else Stabler. That's Saints. Funny. Yeah, it was great. I mean, and he's wearing a Saints shirt.
My brother George was in the movie. His line got cut, so you only see him walking his wife to the car. But he has a new book out, by the way. Speaking of
yes, let's push the book.
He has a book out called "Looking for Tennessee Williams, New Orleans, 1963," and it's really fun. He has this series of murder mysteries that he's written. It started with this book, "Lit by Lightning," about this actor Jeffrey Chaussier who comes back to New Orleans to solve his father's murder, and gets involved in all this intrigue. And it's just so great film noir. And my brother's 20 years older than me, so his New Orleans is not just the New Orleans I grew up in, which it is, but it's also the New Orleans I romanticized since I was a kid. The New Orleans that was a little bit older than me and a little bit more sophisticated than me. And so I can smell the chicory in the air and taste the barks and the roast beef, and it's just a fantastic read. So I'm looking forward to this one. I just started. This is the first one. He's got like 6 Jeffrey Chaussier books, but this one isn't one of those. And so I'm waiting for it to unfold, and it's been fun so far.
It's kind of funny. Me and Chris Finney were talking, and he was telling me about this video game that him and his little cousin were playing, and it was basically this particular video game. You went to Venice, and you were just solving all kinds of puzzles or whatever in Venice. But I mean, it's like the blueprints of Venice. You're walking through Venice.
Right.
Anyway, at some point, he said his uncle or somebody had brought the kids over to Venice at some point to visit, right? Vacation. Nice vacation. He knew the city from the video game.
Funny.
Right. It was like, I knew the whole city, and it gave us the idea. I mean, imagine all you have to do is map a city, put it in a virtual game, and then give people things to go and find or whatever like that. And you got a video game. But yeah, he knew the whole city. He's like...
Hey, man, I saw 80-year-old Aaron Neville with his video game goggles on, doing a little dance to his workout. He got a video
Oculus.
game. Yeah. For Christmas for his birthday from his wife, and it was just a great video, man. He was having a ball. His hand things on, and he's just dancing and moving and jive. It was just, I don't even know what the game was. He could have been playing football and dodging people for all I know. But he had moves going, and he had a big smile on his face. And I just thought, I always try and resist that kind of thing. I'm trying to stay in the real world, but man, if it's good enough for Aaron Neville, that's been my philosophy most of my adult life.
Right. If it's good enough for him, it's got to be okay.
I remember once we were, Cowboy Mouth was playing at this festival in Seattle called Bumbershoot, a really big festival up there. This is the early days, like 93 or 94, maybe. I don't even remember. But and it was exciting. Got to meet Joan Baez and A.J. Croce, and the Neville brothers were on the bill. We didn't see them until we were leaving for the airport after the festival. And we see Aaron in front of the hotel looking kind of perturbed and kind of pacing. And so one of us, I forget who, works up the nerve to walk up because we're just upstarts from New Orleans, and there's Aaron Neville, and say, "Hey, you need a ride to the airport?" And he goes, "Yeah, the brothers left me." And he was mad, man. Somehow he had missed, roll, and they left for the airport without him somehow. And so we said, well, we're going, give you a ride. So Aaron Neville's sitting in the middle of the van, and we're all just starstruck. We're all looking at each other out of the corner of our eyes, like, who's going to talk? Somebody's got to talk. We can't just ride in silence. So Fred, it being Fred, having the most nerve, works up the nerve to say, hey, Aaron, I really like Circle Be Unbroken on Yellow Moon. And Aaron goes, yeah. And he goes, you ever do it live? And Aaron goes, no, can't. And Fred goes, oh, it's too high? And Aaron points to his heart and he goes, no, too deep.
There you go.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's the real deal. He's the goods.
Yes, he is. Always has been. Always has been the ambassador of, especially the ambassador of cool for New Orleans.
Yeah, I went to see him once in. I was working on a movie that he was in, and speaking of him being cool, I waited all day. I was working on this British movie that I could tell stories forever. It was this banker gets into a caddy and goes across America on a magical mystery tour meeting stars. It was a really thin, made-for-TV British movie. The plot was really thin. It was just so they could show videos. And Aaron was in it, and he was going to be singing in the Municipal Auditorium. This is '89, so it's way pre-Katrina. I can't wait because I've gotten to see Little Richard sing live. I've gotten to sing Katie Lang, and I love it. Sing without microphones. It's pure. It's beautiful. I can't wait to hear Aaron. And right when it's I get to be filming, I'm just a PA on the movie, so that the AD comes up and he sends me on a run. I'm just like, I'm gonna miss Aaron singing. And as I'm walking to my car to leave, there's this like horde of makeup girls and women that work on the movie surrounding Aaron, who's giant. And they're like, just sing us a song, just sing us a song. And he goes, all right, ladies, I'll sing you one song. And he sings When You Wish Upon a Star with nothing but his voice. And I just stopped and listened with the biggest smile. I was just like, yeah, I couldn't have topped the moment. It was lovely.
Right.
And then once in New York, I'm a big fan. I saw him when I was living there in the '80s, trying to be the next Bob Springsteen or Bruce Dillon. But both of those jobs were taken, and I wound up having to come home and be Paul Sanchez. And I went to the Lone Star, which was a great kind of country club on the 6th Avenue or 5th Avenue leading into Washington Square Park. And it wasn't a big club. It held a few hundred people. So I was crammed onto a stairway right over the drummer watching Mean Willie Green play. And I remember at one point they were just funking like crazy. And Willie dropped the stick and just kept this insane beat going with one hand as he reached for the stick with a smile on his face, never missing anything. And they had just released a record, I think Fire on the Bayou on Capitol, where they had Aaron singing Mona Lisa. And it was just Aaron with the string section. And it was just gorgeous on the record, of course. But to do it live, they had brought the string section, on a tape like we used to do back in the 80s. And they would play the tape and Aaron would sing with the strings. So the brothers took a break and it's just Aaron on stage and he's singing Mona Lisa with the strings and it's just incredibly beautiful. And there's that solo section where the strings kind of take over and he's singing and he looks out into the audience and the voice is so high and angelic, but he speaks real low and he just goes, kind of reminds you of Bambi, don't it? Bambi. Right. And everybody laughed. And then suddenly he starts singing again and the laughter's gone and you could hear a pin drop. Mm-hmm. Such is his voice from the Angels.
I actually, I did a couple of gigs with him at one point, just recently, since I've been back home.
Mixing him?
Yeah, mixing a couple of live shows. They went up for a weekend or something, did a handful of shows. But I was kind of blown away with just, the devotion that the fans still have for this guy. We were up on the East Coast. I think we were like Connecticut or something like that, and huge turnout and just people just wanting to talk to him after, like, my mom loved you, or I used to come see you when I was a little girl, kind of thing. And
that's awesome. Yeah,
it was crazy. And he comes out and shakes people's hands and gives people love and goes back and man, he's still got tremendous devotion.
I think the legends like Aaron Neville and Willie Nelson, the people that have endured and are still doing it in their 80s because they truly love it, they're authentic. And what you see is real. They've lived real lives. It hasn't always been a bed of roses for either of those men since I pointed them out in particular. And we played a gig with Willie one time, and they all just couldn't have been more friendly. His crew and him, we got invited on the bus. his Cowboy Mouth days. This is way back in the '90s, and in fact, our guitar tech at the time was a guy named Reese Anderson from Texas, and he was loving it all so much. It's this Texas vibe, you know. And he goes up to their tour manager and he goes, "Man, you guys got a wonderful crew. You ever, replace people?" And the guy just looks ahead and he smiles and goes, "Oh yeah, if they die, we replace them."
Right.
I mean, they're family, you know. So we're hanging out, and it's just like watching family, and it's beautiful. We're all just sort of starry-eyed. And here comes Willie walking to the stage at this festival in Jackson, Mississippi, and he's about maybe 50 feet from the stage when this fan calls out, "Hey, Willie, I got something for you." And he just takes it right and starts walking, and his tour manager just grabs his arm ever so gently and leads him to the stage and puts him on stage. And comes back. I said, "You stopped that? You stopped them from going over there to keep him safe?" And he goes, "Oh no, I stopped him from going over there to get the show on, because if he goes over there, he's going to start talking and having a beer. He'll be an hour late on stage just because he likes people."
No kidding. Wow.
Oh yeah, we were in Asheville, North Carolina, and we were playing, like a 500 person venue, and he was playing a big theater around the corner. And at the end of our sound check, I'm going out to the tour bus, and a couple of police cars and the news cameras pull up. And so I get in the bus. I'm like, "What's going on?" And they go, "Willie's coming over to do an interview in the club that we're playing." I'm like, "Nice. I'm going to just sit here in the window of the bus and wait for Willie, you know?" So I wait. Hour goes by. There's no Willie. An hour and a half, no Willie. 2 hours, police leave. 2.5 hours, the camera crew leaves. I go inside, ask the club manager, "So what happened?" He goes, "Well, Willie was on his way over after sound check from the theater, but he was passing this Mexican food place, and it was a nice night. People were out drinking. Somebody said, 'Hey, Willie, you want a beer?' And he said, 'As a matter of fact, I do.'" He just went and started drinking beer and tequila with some people he just met and let the interview go because Willie Nelson and he can.
Right. He's like, "What? Oh, yeah, that's right, an interview." Yeah. Well,
Fans love him too, man. He's the real deal. What you see is the real deal. He's giving you truth with every note, and it's hard earned and hard won. Same with Aaron. Those are the guys. Like John Boutte.
Right.
He sings
Have
from
you
a
talked to
place.
John lately? How's he doing?
I haven't talked to him. He's a country gentleman now, and I don't live in the city proper anymore either. And so we've kind of, I think I'll always love him, and I can go visit him when it's all over. But he likes to stay safe with this pandemic, and I like to stay safe. And so we've texted and that kind of thing a few times. But no, I haven't seen him, and I haven't seen very many people, to be honest. I've seen you.
Yep.
And I see my friend Rick Gernhauser, who does my album art, and I have an actor friend who lives alone named Carl Palmer. And when the weather's nice, not like this, but he'll come and sit in the backyard, and we'll have a sandwich and
hang out,
be so kind of thing. Because I don't, because I want to make sure my friends that live alone, I want to sort of check in on them when I can. But I'm also trying to be safe because I'm an old dude.
Right. That thing I was telling you earlier about Venice, man, I would love to, me and Chris were talking, I would love to kind of go through and sort of map out New Orleans, virtually, and then make it.
Don't say this on our talk show. Somebody's going to see it. Some whiz kid's going to see it.
And he's going to do this.
And then next week, you'll be buying his game.
Yes. Well, you know what, kid? If you can put this together, I will buy your game, just to say. But then, but wait, because then you could do it like 1912 New Orleans, like go through old pictures.
Oh, you give it away so much, because then you can go anytime period.
The 1800s. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. It would be an awesome game that we're going to be both buying. And then,
by the way, if there's a whiz kid who does know how to do this, please give us a call. You can find us. Look, text.
We're not asking for much. Just wet my beak a little. Just a little.
You know what? I'll introduce you to people, kid. We'll make sure that the game actually gets financed. You do the work. We'll get you financed.
That kid's got more money than either of us, whoever he is. He invested in GameStop last week. He's a millionaire looking for a new project. You just gave it to him. We're done.
Yeah. Well, I would play that game. Just saying, it would be a pretty awesome game. So
that would be an awesome game.
All right, I just want to make sure, Steven, am I right about this? Did you mean to put history of Mardi Gras? Is Mardi Gras, or was it iPhone, Apple stuff changing?
What's the history of Mardi Gras?
No, it says Marci Gras, Marci. Does that mean something to you, or is it like an iPhone thing?
Probably. What's the question?
No, it just says history of Mardi Gras. So what I was trying to figure out is if that was an iPhone change, like it didn't like the word Marty.
There's a Marcy who likes to
Maybe
Gras.
that's what he means. Yes.
That could be like a party in Marcy that we don't know about, and he's reaching
So,
out.
Stephen, tell us about Marcy and her Marcy Gras. Is that what y'all do in Houston? We got to do that. We're going to do Marcy Gras in Houston.
Yeah, I couldn't do a history of Mardi Gras. I could do my histories of Mardi Gras. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I've grown up in the Channel. We lived 6 blocks from St. Charles. So my mother would make a giant pot of chili and a giant pot of hot dogs and a giant vat of potato salad. We had 5 brothers and 5 sisters, so there were 11 of us. And you'd get dressed up in your costume and go out with my mom to the St. Charles Avenue. And then she'd stay for a couple of parades, but she's out. She's going to go home and hang. And the house is open. You get hungry, 6 blocks home to get a hot dog and some chili, use bathroom, go back out on the parade route. You were there all day. But I was dressing from the time I was 5.
Right.
And my uncle Andrew, who was a bachelor until he was in his 40s, he was one of the greatest New Orleans guys ever. And he always built these elaborate costumes. Like I remember one year he came by as a lion tamer, and his girlfriend was dressed as a sexy leopard, and he had a cage. He was pulling her in,
Nice.
and then we monkeys. So we got to pose in a cage as monkeys because my brother Johnny was like 4 and I'm 6, and my sister Margaret was 9. So we were the little cute monkeys in the cage. But he had the coolest costumes. He had one year he was dressed as a vampire, and he made a coffin, and he dragged it until he was too drunk to drag it. And in the morning, he tells my mom, like, I don't know where the coffin is. I left it somewhere. And my mom hands him the newspaper. And there's a story, a guy in the French Quarter was blocked in his apartment, blocking his door.
That's, that's brilliant. Because if I were him, like you're pushing liquor around, and when you run out of liquor, the coffin, you don't need the coffin anymore. I mean,
If that's what the coffin was for, then yeah. Well, plus, at a certain point, if you're drunk enough not to remember where you left the coffin, then you've had a great Mardi Gras. It's just
yeah, it's time to go home.
The coffin has served its purpose.
You know what I remember? So I remember back in the 90s at some point, like we would do these Lundi Gras shows, and they were great because there was nothing else happening on Lundi Gras until Love Harry Connick, but he decided to throw a damn parade on Lundi Gras. So suddenly we had to do shows at midnight. Like before that, you could have an early show and get out, and there was nothing else going on. But then all of a sudden, thank you, Harry.
Yeah, Spanish Plaza. Those were some great shows, man. Yes. Really great shows, especially when it was crowded, like you said, pre-Orpheus. I remember once, playing, and there was just thousands of people, and Fred led him into the fountain, and it was just this mass of. But I also remember playing a Lundi Gras show where it was like this, where you're like, it's freezing and there's freezing mist, and do I really have to go on? Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
You have to go. You have to smile.
And you have to smile and act like this is the best night of your day, of your life.
Oh, and you'd be between songs just blowing fingers trying to make them work
and
again.
You're like, I'm playing all bar chords because my fingers are frozen into bar chords. I'm just like moving it all up and down the neck just because I can't move my fingers. Yes.
Oh yeah. There's always those gigs, and there's definitely those Lundi Gras and those Mardi Gras. God bless, like we're going to have tomorrow. And again, you just have to thank the universe for not making it painful to miss Mardi Gras this year.
It was spell check, by the way. He movies on tips. Oh, right, gotcha. Marcy Gras. I did it again to you, Stephen. It said Marcy Gras again. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but he just said the movies on tips are documentaries. They're actually documentaries about Mardi Gras, and his phone or whatever doesn't like it.
Yeah, there's some good ones about that. And of course, Tootie's Last Suit being one of them.
Yeah.
That's a really beautiful documentary about Tootie Montana making his last Mardi Gras Indian.
Oh, really? No, I haven't seen that. So
got to watch it, man.
Nice.
It's they follow him making his last suit, and
like all year long, or just
yeah. And in the course of it, and he's not a man of very many words, but it's beautiful, elegant movie in his stillness. And in the course of it, the Indians get invited pre-Katrina to City Hall to speak to the council about police violence against the Mardi Gras Indians. And they ask one of the other Indians to speak, and he defers to Chief Tootie Montana. As the film cameras are running, and you hear a murmur run through the Indians. Because one thing about all the Mardi Gras Indians, they never defer. That's why they meet, and they dance, and they see who's the real chief. But this was the first time they deferred to Chief Tootie Montana as the chief of chiefs. And he got up before the city council and he says, I masked 51 years, made 51 costumes. Every year, the police are waiting for us at Pogger and Claiborne. We see them wrapping the leather around their wrists on their billy clubs so they don't lose them when they beat us down. And they say, go home, Mardi Gras is over. And we say, it ain't over for the people on St. Charles. And they say, well, it's over for you. And they start hitting. And then he leans forward, he turns to his son and he says, what? And he drops dead of a heart attack. It's on film. And somebody, I believe it's his wife, screams, somebody get a doctor. And his son screams, no, Indian Red. And all the Indians in the chamber break into Mare Kudifayo. And they sing him Indian Red right there on the council floor. It's such an elegant, poetic, powerful moment, and says so much about that culture and their reverence for life and their reverence for death. So that movie is one of the Mardi Gras movies that I would recommend if you haven't seen it.
I'm gonna go look that up. Actually, yes, Stephen agrees with you. Great one on the History of the Indians. And then yes, he's like, damn that Apple spell correct. You know, for some reason, every time I put the word live in, even now after I've trained my phone, but it changes it to love. Like every time I put live, it changes it to love.
You know, I was texting my friend Tam Katie, who's a film producer, and I forget what it was I was texting. I was on some shoot and she needed something, but I said, I can't. Oh shoot! I have to look up the song now. But it was the song "Fly and Get High" off of Heart Renovations, and she said, "Oh, that'd be a good line for a song." So I wrote it into my phone, and I wound up using it. So sometimes spell check is handy because there's a line that makes no sense, and you go, "I'm going to hang on to that." You never know where that'll fit in.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes it makes up new words for you.
Like, you just got to keep your eyes and heart open. Songs are everywhere.
Songs are everywhere. You're absolutely right about that. Some of the stories with the Wright brothers were always kind of funny because, you know, I do know that feeling that Spencer had where it's like, watch what you say in front of Paul. Because suddenly, you know, we'll be talking about a song idea and suddenly you're like, oh, wait a second. Start writing some stuff out and, you know, and then
come out with a verse and a half.
Verse and a half.
I mean, that was how the first song happened. We were all sitting there like you would at your first session and, oh, I remember, golly, it just came back to me. So it's Jim and Alex and Spencer at the first Wright Brothers session. It's Chris's brainchild. Jim thought of who he would invite, and we go to Spencer's house, which became a tradition. And God bless Marilyn, she had made some beautiful pastries, and there was French press coffee, but nobody knew how to get started. So they start talking about their kids because they all have kids. Alex was a new father, and Jim's got a couple of kids, and Spencer's got a lot of kids, and they're all adults. And like a half hour. I mean, you know, Mikey, I love your kids. It's like 20 minutes, a half hour kids. So finally I was like, hey guys, I don't mean to be, you know, the single guy, but are we going to write songs or what? And so Spencer pulls out a notebook and Jim pulls out titles and Jim starts throwing out titles and Spencer's going through lines. And I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm watching them talking, tossing ideas sort of like, it was like a rhythm to me. It was like a song. And so I wrote out the first song, which is Turning Back the Pages of the Notebook. And Spencer just looked at me and he went, oh, I'm going to have to watch what I say around you, aren't I?
Right.
And then sort of like, that's how we've written a few songs is I do believe everything is a song. Now, Alex is great about that too, because Spencer did Lito Benito. He had this guitar made by this guy from Argentina, I believe, or Venezuela. Lito Benito. And I said, oh, that's a song. And Spencer went, oh, well, if anybody has any ideas, let me know. Without missing a beat, Alex, who claims he doesn't write on the spot, goes, I want to be Lito Benito and guitar that can bark. And we're all like, oh my God. And then
it was off to the races.
We had great times writing. It was always fun. He's missed.
I do remember when we worked on some sessions, I would usually, like, on the song, either I write it out and I get the lyrics, like, when it's coming together, or it's just a melody and chords. And so the ones that are melodies and chords, I like to throw at you sometimes. Like, hey, look, I got this melody, I like it, I got this thing. I don't know what to do with it. And it's funny to me because that works well for you because you hear things inside of there like, it sounds like you're kind of saying this. And I'm like, was I? I don't know. I was saying, yeah, it kind of sounds like you're saying this. And then, you know, because mostly it is vowel sounds, right? I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to.
You know, Vance Generous used to do that way back in the Backbeats days in the 80s when we were writing together. He had beautifully structured songs that he would have maybe a verse or two, and then he'd kind of mumble a line here and there too. And I would write what I thought he was saying, and then he would be like, "Hey, that's a cool line. Where'd you get that?" I was like, "Oh, that's what you sang, right?" And he goes, "Oh no, I sang this," you know, which not at all. Yeah, I mean that's a fun way to work. I like to take people's intentions
Uh,
sometimes, and sometimes somebody will say, "Oh, well, it's about this," and you go, "Well, that's perfect. I'm just going to use what you just said. That's
right,
it."
right. And I can turn that into, you know, whatever. And generally, like, it's not like you put out, you know, when we're working together, you usually have several different ways it can go. You know, I mean, it's like, well, I was kind of thinking it could go in this direction or this. You know, what do you know, feeling?
I mean, that's to me, that's
Right,
music. When I'm working with somebody that goes, "No, that's not how it goes. It goes like this." It's very
right,
limiting, you know, because that's how it goes in that version that you know, and that's
right,
cool. That's a cool
right.
version. I remember like in rock and roll, it was like if it was close enough, it was good enough. You rock the song, you know, like Mary LeSang says, "Fuck, learn the song. I want to play the song." So like we were playing at a Rolling Road show rehearsal for Jazz Fest. We were playing a Dire Straits song, Romeo and Juliet, and it was a band. Only Alex, I think, had played it with me before. So the band starts to play, and Alex waves off the band. He goes, "If you're playing the actual version, forget it. He doesn't do anything like that." And I just looked at him. I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Nothing like it." And I've been doing this version for 20 years, and it works. People dig it, but this is the way we're going to play it, you know.
Right.
And he sort of didn't care. He knew me by then. At first, he would try and get me to play things right, and then he's just like, it's been sanchised,
Yes.
as John
It
says.
is what it is. I'm kind of the same way. I like to, you know, the guys in my band are always like, yeah, however he plays it, you know, and it could be this way tonight, and then tomorrow he's going to play it different. So, you know, when we were playing, it was like,
It's like, I mean, I grew up on Beatles stuff, so if I hear the song a certain way, that's the way I'm going to write it, and I'm not thinking in terms of theory, how many beats there were. I remember when I was doing Everything That Ends Begins Again, that album with Jay Weigel, he was scoring the strings. So he says to me at one point, you realize that you flip time signatures here for just two bars and then you go back to the other time signature?" I said, I don't know what you just said, but that's the way I play the song. He just he went, I think it's cool. I just wanted to know if that's how you wanted it. I said, "Yeah, that's the way I play it." And he goes, "Great."
right.
You know, I love that. And and then Alex on a couple songs, he came to me on Life is a Ride and he goes, "You leave out a whole chord on the last chorus. Is that intentional?" I said, "Well, I didn't realize I was doing it. That is the way I play it." And he goes, "Fine, fine by me, man." You know, he was so over trying to teach me proper theory by then.
I love Alex. I love him.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have more respect for that guy than most musicians I've ever known. He's an
Well,
incredible
I don't know if
player,
you
good
remember
guy.
this, but like when you were Cowboy Mouth, he was one of the guys that I would bring you his songs and go, "You've got to check this guy out. He's a great songwriter." You weren't ready
Yeah.
yet. It wasn't, you know.
Well, he had the handicap of you liked him, which was hard enough because you liked me,
Right. It's like, wait a second.
and
I
I
don't know
was
if I
that.
trust this guy. So,
And Tim Cohen, who was no longer working for us, the aforementioned nasty evil clown, was a big Alex McMurray fan,
gotcha. So you were like,
like uncomfortably big Alex, because he used to be that big a Paul Sanchez fan. So now I had two of my dear friends that were trying to tell me how this guy's so great, implying that he was better than me in my inferiority complex mind, which made me like, I don't want to hear this
yeah,
guy's stuff,
how
you
about
know?
this guy?
And then when I did hear his stuff, I was like, son of a bitch, he's better than me.
I don't know if he's better. He's different, but man, like songs like "A Month of Sundays." I don't know if you know.
Incredible. Like for years in Cowboy Bath, I used the Dennis Quaid line from The Right Stuff when they would say, "So who's the best songwriter you ever saw?" I'd go, "You're looking at him." That was Dennis Quaid in The Right Stuff. And then when I saw Alex, I used the line he used later in the movie. "Well, there's this guy
Mhm.
that I know in New Orleans, you know,
Who can pretty much do whatever
he's
he wants on guitar, and
he wants on guitar, any style of music, incredibly literal,
mm,
literate, You know, he's got it all. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And in fact, you know, Alex and I met because of Exit to Mystery Street. Dave Perner from Soul Asylum was producing it. We were doing the song "Ride with the Devil," which we talked about on another show. And Dave says, you know, this song, it needs some ripping lead guitar on it. And I was like, well, I don't really
Right, it's
rip
not my
lead
thing.
guitar. I hadn't had Rankin give me lessons yet. And he goes, well, I know somebody. And Alex lived next door to the truck farm, and he was out in his garden. And he comes in, and he's got a dirt smudge on his forehead. He's sweaty. He's got calamine lotion all over his arms from poison ivy. And I'd never met him before. He's in a white T-shirt that's got mud on it. And I just kind of go, hey, man. He goes, hey, man. And he plugs in, and they let the track rip. And in one take, it was like somebody had unleashed a fire-breathing dragon out of his guitar. And he's like, and Dave got another one for safety's sake. And he goes, thanks a lot, Alex. You can go. And Alex goes, hey, thanks, man. I don't really get to play rock and roll too often like that. Walks out, and I didn't see him for a bit, right? So I needed a musician. I had been using Shamar and Matt and Craig. And somebody said, you should use Alex. So I started using him, and he was like the perfect foil. I would go to say a line from a movie, and he would say the next line. You know, he knew all the jokes, so like the patter on stage. And this went on for about 6 months, where I could play any song literally. Like some fan trying to be a smartass called out "Time in a Bottle."
Uh-huh.
So I started playing "Time in a Bottle," and at the end of it, I turned to him and I go, "You played that like the record." He goes, "Never played it before in my life." Great, but we didn't speak off stage. You know, I actually nicknamed us Ralph and Sam, the old sheep and wolf cartoon. If you're old enough to remember, they would punch in the time clock, morning
Right.
Ralph, morning, and then they'd beat each other up all day. Night Ralph, night Sam. That would be it. And so I nicknamed him Ralph, you know, and I had to explain to him what that was because he's younger than me. And about 6 months in, somebody says to me, so you and Alex must be friends for like 20 years. You guys got a thing up there on stage. I said, no, I've actually never spoken to him on stage. I was like, really? And so one night, his wife, Courtney, showed up at the gig, which was unusual because, you know, she didn't come to too many of his gigs. She was busy working nights at the time. It was before she was a teacher. And my second ex never came to see me play. So to see one of our wives there was unusual. And at the end of the night, Alex and I went to the bar, and I went to pay him like I always do. And he goes, thanks, man. I go, thanks, man. That was pretty much our conversations. And she gives him a little wife elbow in the back, and he goes, oh, hey, man, you want to get a drink? And I was like, sure, whatever. I mean, we don't usually do that, but yeah, let's get a beer. So we each get a beer, and we're sitting there kind of looking around the bar and looking at the next band set up and checking out the game on TV, and finish a beer, and I look at him and I go, so we good? And he goes, yeah, we're good. And Courtney just goes, I think I give up on you too.
He is a man of few words, really. It's like you catch him in the, but it just depends, right? I mean, you catch him at the right time. He's, you know, but most of the time he's pretty quiet and just, you know, doing his thing.
At worst times in my life, he's been a great friend to me. He would deny that because he was drunk a couple of those times. I might not remember, but he was brutally honest when I needed brutal honesty, and that's a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
And again, his abilities are just,
Right.
you know, he's in a rare air.
So real quick, we got Eric Barton is wondering, do you know where he could find the Tootie documentary? Do you know where you saw it last? Was it an Amazon Prime?
Yes. Tell him to Eric. Eric is a good friend of mine. Eric, go to LouisianaMusicFactory.com or call them. They have that on video, and we'll be glad to sell you a copy. And I'm sure they have Mel Blanc's Mardi Gras movie as well, if that's not out of print. So two worth having, and man, I miss you. Look forward to coffee when this thing is behind us.
I'm putting this into the chat just in case he didn't hear us. It wants to change. See, my phone wants to change it to Tootsie. Yeah,
Tootsie.
That's what he wants to tell it. I'm trying to say no. I don't want it to be Tootsie, but you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Phones have a.
Well, we're at the end of our show, Mike.
I can't believe it. And look, Lundi Gras. Sorry, Lundi Gras. I hope everybody has a safe Mardi Gras tomorrow. Staying home and you know, is it sad to sit home and drink on Mardi Gras? I mean, is that a sad state of affairs?
I mean, if you have an alcohol problem, I guess it would be a sad thing. If you're doing it because that's what you would be doing on Mardi Gras,
It's not.
and that and you're trying to keep a tradition alive, then I'm going to have a piece of fried chicken and a piece of king cake and something to drink, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And
I'm gonna have to save that Tootie documentary though until after Mardi Gras because the ending of it sounds pretty dramatic.
Yeah, well,
and I want to be right for that.
by the way, but yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's been a fun Monday hanging out with you again. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to Mardi Gras style and jacket.
Yes, Mardi Gras style. You know, I might dress up tomorrow just to be around the house. Thinking about dressing up.
Well, I'm going to wear a mask, but I have a lot of those.
Yes. I don't know if that counts, right? The pandemic mask, does that count? Is that a mask?
If it was a regular Mardi Gras and you showed up wearing a mask like that, people would say, "What's the costume?"
Right.
So I don't see the big deal about wearing a mask because it's Mardi Gras. It's Mardi Gras tomorrow, people. Wherever you are in the world, please wear a mask. If you never wear a mask before, wear a mask for Mardi Gras.
The Mardi Gras mask. Look at that. Who knew? And then all you need is those eyes wide shut kind of things for your eyes, you know, and then.
You see, you're into those sex movies, and then now we're going to end the show because you're going a whole new direction. That show in a whole tangential area we can't go to.
No, we can't go to. But for Wednesday's show, though, I do have some ideas about some director kind of stuff. We'll talk later.
Oh, speaking of Wednesday's show, I think that we introduced the Eddie Ecker 2-minute rant.
Eddie Ecker 2-minute rant, yes. For any of those who know who Eddie Ecker is, it will be worth your time to hang out and.
Eddie Ecker, for those of you who don't know, is the penultimate New Orleans yacht ball. He's also one of the smartest guys I ever know, one of the most opinionated guys I ever know. But if you want to hear a true yacht, tune in for Eddie Ecker's 2-minute rant.
Oh my gosh, is he a yacht? This man is like, he's, you know, if they paid for it, he'd be like a foreman. Like if there was a job being a yacht, he'd be a foreman easily.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt.
Oh yeah, I look forward to it.
So I'm gonna play our title song out, and it's another fun show. Thanks everybody again for tuning in. I'm gonna go refill my coffee, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar. It was shaped like a cat, it was a present from my mother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind.